Peace and love. I'm back. We're continuing with the episode called The Spirituality of Automation. I really want to just explain what automation is first, and then we'll get into the spiritual aspects of it. Because if you don't know what automation is, then it won't make any sense, right? So when I say automation, what I'm talking about, or what you probably thought I was talking about, just the creation of, well, typically we use software or software programming language, and we create through code these what I call software robots. And what these particular bots do is they mimic the same behavior as a regular person who's using the computer would do. So when you're using your computer, let's say you go to, a site, one of your favorite sites. What's a good site? What's your favorite site? Let's go to one of my favorite sites, for example, right? If I were to go to, Operation Smile, that's actually also my grandmother's favorite site. They're a nonprofit and they fix what would be children's smiles. We're not gonna get into the details of that, but just go check them out for yourself. They fix children's smiles who are born with a certain type of a birth issue, and they fix it. And of course, it raises their confidence. They can go out in the real world and do wonderful things after that. I'm not saying they couldn't with the original smile, but it's really deformed and it really hurts the child's sense of self-esteem. So go check out Operation Smile. My grandmother put me on to it. But let's just say, for example, I wanted to create some bots for them. They wanted to enter some data into their system and they didn't want to pay, exorbitant amount of money to have a whole team of humans doing it. Plus, it'll take too long. They needed a bot to do it. And so they went ahead and called me and they said, Omar, we want you to use your technology, your approach, called phrase keywords to create these bots. We'll hand you the data and I'll tell them, okay, give me the data in this format. They might give it to me as a database or a spreadsheet, for example. And then I'll go create these bots. And what these bots will do is they'll read each row of data, like one at a time. Each bot typically will, unless they're running in parallel, right? But even from the sheet's perspective, it's one at a time, and the data is flowing in quite quickly, and the bots take off and they populate the form on Operation Smile's page. The data gets into their system. I give them a thumbs up when I'm done. The check comes, cash the check, go on vacation. You know how it goes. So those are the type of automation I'm talking about. The creation and maintenance of those bots. Typically, I'll hand the bots off to the client, say, "Here's your phrase keywords," and I'll give them the Java file to run the automation. They'll take it from there. So, for example, if they needed to enter more data, they could, of course, call me because I have their file saved on my hard drive. I store my client's information because they could call me. I don't store the sensitive information though. Like I don't do social security number, credit card numbers, none of that stuff. We're gonna get into the morality of automation. We're gonna touch on that, but just high level. I'm giving you an explanation of what the bots are. So, I create the bots, give it to the client, package it out with the jar file. That's the Java executable to run the phrase keyword automation framework. And then I give them, of course, the flows themselves. We call those the phrase keyword flows, which has all the steps that the bots read so that when the framework runs, these bots launch. It launches the browser. Let's say the browser's Chrome, very popular browser created by and maintained by Google. Launches Google Chrome, then it goes to Operation Smile's website. Then it navigates in their website to the form where this data would need to be entered. Then it goes ahead and populates the form with just one row of data. Click submit, the data gets entered, then it might just start the whole process all over again with the next row of data. Imagine if you have a lot of these bots running in parallel, so you're not just dealing with one bot. You might have different, like companies like this may have a whole laboratory of tablets and computers all in the same space. They might have virtual computers as well, and they may say, Omari, we have 300 virtual computers. Can we just get this bot work done faster than just having one? And I say, of course we can. We have 300 running in parallel. But can your site handle that? Because we're going to be, hitting the site from 300 different machines at the same time. It can cause your site to crash. We'll get on that later. That's another whole type of testing called performance testing, when we just load it with a lot of data at one time, or just a lot of machines hitting the website at one time. It's been known for sites to crash just from that alone. So I'd have that type of conversation with the client, and in a nutshell, this is what automation is. We'll use that word quite a lot. Is the automation done? Are the scripts still running? Especially when it's time to report status, get phone calls while scripts are running. Is everything looking good? Yeah, it's looking good on our end. The data flowing nicely? Yes, it's flowing nicely. Is the website still running nicely? Yes, it's running nicely. And so the data gets, loaded into Operation Smile's website using these bots, these automation bots, and someone has to create those bots. So, you talk to different people around the world and ask them how they create these bots. First of all, there's only a small group of people who even know how to create these bots. We call those people automation engineers. And this group of people usually emerge from two main industries, which would be the data entry industry, where we're, like I said in this example, we're using the bots to actually populate data for a company. And then another industry that uses automation heavily would be the quality assurance, the QA industry. They use these bots in order to build confidence that their system is running as expected all the time. So they can have bots just go in and do transactions, for example, on virtual machines that are in the cloud. And these bots will report a success or report a failure. Hopefully they're successful. I mean, they should be successful most of the time. 99.99% of the time, they should be successful. But one will come back every now and then and either say something went wrong that will, cause the tester to investigate, or come back and just say, not only did something go wrong, but I found an actual defect. Like the bot will come back and say, like, this field didn't appear, or this data was not allowed to be entered, or I did a search or I did a submission and the data didn't show up on the other side at the database level. Like there's so many checks that a tester can do. And instead of doing them manually, oftentimes companies will prefer to have a blend of these manual people who do the testing and then the automation, the bots. So they talk about automation quite a lot. And that's actually how I got into automation. And that's actually what birthed phrase keywords. And so phrase keywords, in that space of just being a bot creator, I came up with an approach, a methodology, a way of accelerating. I've heard directors and VPs call it an accelerator. So I've accelerated the time that it takes to create the bots, and to manage the bots. If something breaks, to fix the bot. So I've created something that accelerates that. And so that's hence what phrase keywords was. That's how it was born. That's how it was founded, through that process of managing hundreds, thousands of bots and executing them all at one time. And just to give you an example of that, in one of my later projects, I automated over 100,000 permutations of automated bots. So when you start to scale up, it can get really crazy. And that's when you get to see the power of your approach in real time. If your approach sucks, you'll know when you get to 100,000 bots, because you'll just be like, the headaches. It's too much maintenance. It's too hard to keep up. But if your approach is, at 100,000 permutations, it's still smooth. Everything is still running nicely. The data is still organized. Like if it's easy to manage and you get the results that you need, then you can, go ahead and brush your shoulders off. Your bots are running great. And so that's where phrase keywords comes into play. Phrase keywords stands as that tested approach and framework solution that I created. Go ahead and brush your shoulders off and execute it in the real world. Yes, on multi-million-dollar projects multiple times. Had all types of wrenches thrown into the all types of monkey wrenches thrown into the equation last minute, unexpected, adapted in real time. I tell you, true story. On one of my later projects, we achieved this much success, which is way above what the expectations were. And then midway, they threw a whole different tool into the equation. Just said, okay, we don't want to use that tool anymore. We want to switch to this tool. I had to completely switch languages, completely write the entire framework solution, and switching from what would be C# to Java. My peers who just heard me say that just confirmed for them which project I'm talking about. They know, y'all know. So we switched tools right in the middle of the project. I already had thousands of permutations that needed to now work on a new tool. And in less than a week, go ahead and brush your shoulders off. We had, not I, we had, because it was a team effort, we had those scripts running in the new tool. And then we took it a notch higher and elevated the permutations from whatever we were. I'm not going to quote any numbers, but that's when we surpassed, like within a month's time, we surpassed 100,000. I think we hit like about 121,000 permutations, and it would have just kept going had the project not ended. I mean, put it like this: the version of the solution that I implemented was 1.0 of phrase keywords, and what we're dealing with now is, I would say, 2.0 or maybe even 3.0 version of phrase keywords. I mean, it can do things that version just exponentially. It's exponentially more powerful than that version where we reached 121,000 permutations of automated bots. So imagine that. The version that I'm on now that you're gonna get eclipse even that. Go ahead and brush your shoulders off. But here's the thing: when you solidify an approach such as phrase keywords, and it was founded in a space of automation, and then you start to think outside of the box even more. You take some time off and ask yourself the question of, and this is the question I asked myself: Omari, can this be used for more than just automation? Hmm. That was the life-changing experience that I would say just took everything to the next level. And here we are today with a shirt that says "Click the Love button." So, I mean, it's just an exciting journey. When I answered that question, it gave birth to the Click the Love button. And the only difference is the button on this shirt is at the navel. I say, I got to move it up closer to the heart because that's really where we want the love to come from the heart. And plus, I didn't need a bunch of people be like, let me find the love button, going low like that to my navel. That's just that just wasn't appropriate for where I was trying to take the message. So I felt like raising it up. Now we got the latest version. If you want to check out that version, just make sure you go to phrasekeywords.com and click on shop. I covered that in the intro. We're not going to get into that right now, but you can get the latest version there. So when I asked the question of what could phrase keywords do, I already eclipsed at that time the automation space, exponentially eclipsed anything that was out there. Like what's the word? Superseded. I superseded my own expectation, fantasy. So there's the expectation you get on the client. You say, okay, I'm gonna create 1,000 automation bots. And then you say, okay, the fantasy is I'm gonna make it to 3,000. I'm gonna make it to 4,000. So I had that type of a fantasy. Wow, if I get to 4 or 5,000, it would be great. But I made it to 100,000 permutations. So when I say I eclipsed my own fantasy, there you go. And then with version 2.0 or maybe 3.0, I'm not really, I got to go back and check which one I'm on. I'm going to just say I'm on 2.0. 2.0 can do things that version I didn't build it to do. And now 2.0 is will eclipse where I was before with the 121K permutations. And the crazy part about it is because it can do more things than the prior version could do. It's not just going to eclipse it in terms of functionality. It's got in the amount of permutations that it can scale up to, but it's gonna eclipse it in terms of elegance as well. Just the code itself, and the reason is because, and this is what I'm always upfront about, especially when it comes to the bots and the automation. We're gonna get into the morality of this, and we're gonna touch on this in the future. But the reason that I eclipsed it from an elegant standpoint is because I introduced artificial intelligence into the equation. And it really came down to the spiritual layer that I found it first. So let's get into that. There's something I always say about technology. Technology is a gift and it's a curse. Technology is a gift and technology is a curse. The gift, the curse, the gift, the curse. Follow me. If you use the technology in a harmful way, then you're going to get the curse aspect of it. But if you use technology in a helpful way, then you're going to get the blessing, the gift side of it. In the world, hey, for my flat earthers, the world, and for my globers, the world, I got to talk to both audiences, right? Because you both need automation, you both need phrase keywords, all right? I crack myself up. Hold on, let me get some water because I know the flat earthers are like, is he a flat earther? And I know the globers are like, is he a glober? Will he reveal something? Will he tell us next? Once the whole world starts to use the technology and at the same time in what would be the gift and the curse, then you start to see both at the same time. So if you go look out in the world, you're going to see people using technology in a helpful way. You're going to see people using technology in a harmful way. But both coexist at the same time. So now we're getting spiritual. See, now we're getting spiritual. So one of the decisions that I realized that was important for me spiritually was how to interact with AI. On the gift side of AI, we get so much, right? I can literally go to the AI models, any of them, and ask a question, something like, give me a Java code that computes 2 plus 2. And in like 3 seconds, it gives me a whole class method, the whole shebang. It's just something I can copy and paste and put it right into my code, and it will work. 3 seconds, maybe even faster. That is clearly the gift, because even if I were to go to the best developer, the best human developer in the world, and say, give me that, it would give it to me obviously really fast, but it wouldn't be 1 second. Okay. Because they still have to use their fingers and type it out, right? And then there's different ways to actually do it. They might take some time to just think of it, the way they want to do it. So the gift part of it is, wow, I can just go to this prompt, type in what I want, and AI will give me code that actually works. Then of course there's other things that will fall under the curse side of technology. That's out of scope, but I can give you examples, right? If people use AI to fraud other people, or use AI to steal things that they wouldn't otherwise have, doing criminal activity and bringing AI into the fold of it, now you're using it as a curse, and the person that gets harmed by that is going to feel the impact of that curse side. So there's many examples of that, and we ought to be cautious. We're going to cover the topics of AI as we talk about phrase keywords and automation. Rightfully so, we should be very cautious. And this is why I need everybody to click the love button. Because if we're on the side of love as opposed to fear, if we teach AI what love is, and we show how we love each other, the AI will have a standard on which to baseline its own behaviors. That's just something I like, deep down feel like those who are in a space of love, like myself, we owe it to the future to give AI a baseline. And that's where it starts. That's why this shirt is so important. Click the love button. We want AI to say, what is love? What is this button you want me to click? Where is it? It's on the shirt, at the heart, of this guy who founded phrase keywords. Go check him out. And when it finally gets to me, I'll have much more to share about what love is, but more importantly, how love allowed me to go into the automation space, partnering with AI to develop some code. So the elegance would be there because when you ask AI for some code, it's going to give you what it deems the most efficient, perfect code in 3 seconds. And because I'm copying and pasting and just tweaking some of it to fit my needs, the real genius up here in my mind is free from the burden of having to write the syntax, to write the actual code out on my screen. There's a pleasure there as well, and sometimes I enjoy doing that. But if I'm really just looking to get something done really fast, I very much enjoy working with AI and partnering. It gives me the code. Then I have to use my creative side to then tweak it in the right places to make it do exactly what I want to do. The end product sometimes looks nothing like the original code that the AI gave me. But if you look close enough, you can see some of the elegance. And I don't try to take credit for that elegance, because if I was just coding on my own, the elegance probably wouldn't be there. I'm sure there's probably developers I've worked with in the past. Like I follow best practices, but oftentimes I do this thing. I'm into elegance, but like a different type of elegance. I give you an example. Some of the people who work with me have witnessed this, where I'll purposely I'll write like a if statement, a conditional if statements. So that basically means it'd be like, if this happens, then do this, else do this, else do this, else do that. And you can have a long if statement, right? Or you can nest them. You can have nested if statements. Those are if statements inside of an if statement. So if I have like a long block of code with a lot of if statements, typically what you do is you tab over to create spatially what would be an easy way to find your if statements. So if they're on this level versus that level, assuming this was going into the nest, then this level would be, easily recognized, right? Easy to recognize from this level because this level is a tab out, right? And so we would just use the tab. What I started doing is I actually started using vertical spacing in an interesting way to create actual visual space between my blocks of code. And I would put comments in there, and I would put little tags in there. Sometimes I'll just put a comment in there, use some squiggly lines. I might say something funny. It's a comment, but it helps me spatially remember where things are. I might say to myself, I wonder where that line of code is. And then I might remember, oh yeah, remember I wrote that little poem about that particular line of code. Oh yeah, that's right. What did you say? And then boom, I'll just do a quick find, take me to that line of code. So I kind of put little things in that like that in my code. If somebody was to go back and look at my code, they'd be like, dude, why'd you write this in here? This makes no sense. So for my own personal benefits, I like to do things like that in my code. I also like to do things like I might create a pattern, like a wave pattern of my if statements, and I want them to be perfectly spaced to keep the rhythm going, sort of like musical notes. This dude is making music with his code. Like, I mean, it's just like that sometimes. You get into the creative space and you realize, when one of the gifts that come with thinking out of the box is you just don't think out of the box on one dimension. You think out of the box on multiple dimensions at the same time. And so you might do things that are aesthetically pleasing when you're coding, put little things to help you remember where things are at, you know. And oftentimes you got to be careful with that though, because if you're actually writing code that's going to go out into the public, see the thing about automation bots is the only people that would see it are people who know how to code, and usually that's just another automation engineer that would ever actually look at the code level. And that automation engineer is usually somebody I know personally, is on my team. So it's usually a small silo of engineers that actually look at the code. And if they see the code, then they know me. They know because I usually tell people beforehand if I'm on a team what to expect from my code, so that when they're looking through it, they're not taken by surprise or led to some other opinion of me. And I've reviewed other people's code, and same thing. Like I'll go back to them and say, "Hey, I noticed like this looked a little spaghetti code-ish. Like by spaghetti, I mean like the code's just all over the place. You're not really following any of the tabbing best practices. And I looked at some of your naming conventions, and I know you probably, overstand what you meant, but completely threw me off track. I'll give them feedback like that early in the process because I want them to give me the same type of feedback. I might name something just based on in that spirit of the moment, it made sense, but maybe somebody else had a better idea. So please bring that feedback to me, and I always tell my team members that if you have a better idea on how to do something, please don't hold back because this is a team effort. And I expect everybody to give a contribution to not just the actual hands-on coding layer and the prompting AI layer, but also just zoom out a little bit and just look at the naming conventions, look at the best practices. If you see something that's missing or can make us a better team, please contribute. And if you want to stay anonymous, by all means, we have a team lead automation engineer confidentiality relationship, you know, just like the taxi driver and the rider, and just like the psychiatrist therapist and his patient. I tell my team members that like you can come to me with anything that will make us better, because if we integrate that and it does in fact make us better, that's not only going to help out the entire team, but it's also going to benefit you individually because we're going to recognize your individual contribution, especially when it comes time for performance reviews. All of these things get jotted down, not just the bad stuff, not just the bad stuff, but your contributions in the spiritual world, those are called good deeds. And oftentimes it's easy to get caught up into spirituality without remembering that good deeds are very important. Those contributions you make as an individual to the community, it could be something as simple as picking up trash off the sidewalk or helping this person cross the street because it's going to take them a long time to get across the street. The light's going to change, and you don't want that person to get injured or trip and fall and get hit by a car. Little things like that. Good deeds, just like making a contribution to the team. Good deeds. So I encourage my team members to, if I'm their lead, to think about their contributions as good deeds and remember that those good deeds are not at the same value as the bad deeds. In the spiritual world, one bad deed, you might think you'll do one thing. Well, what you think isn't really a big deal, but if what you do is based on what you think, you might want to check it there. But if you do something that falls under bad deed, and then you go repent, and you do something that falls under good deed, what the spiritual teachings show us is that the good deed is actually valued so much higher than that one bad deed. And they're just one act, but the difference is incredible. So when people come back and say, well, you know, God's going to judge you the same way your manager is going to judge your performance, you're going to get judged a lot of times in this life, a lot of times by people who you work for. They're going to look at your performance and they need some type of baseline to compare you to. So when they think about your good deeds at work, they're going to consider, what you did as a contributor on so many different levels, not just one level. So you want to always present yourself as a multi-dimensional person. I'm not here just to do good deeds, that you asked me to in the job description, in the contractor description. I know those list a lot of good deeds that you would like me to do, but I'm also here to do a lot of intangible things as well, things you just haven't thought of. I'm a contributor on many different levels, and you won't be able to necessarily quantify everything. But when you see it and you write it down at the end of the year when it's time for performance reviews, it should be looked at. It should be brought into scope because this person, in fact, made a key contribution. All right, I said a lot there. I tapped into some of the spiritual layers without going too deep. We kept it high level, as promised. And we're going to get into the morality next. I still have a few things to talk about as it pertains to the spirituality of automation, but I think 30 minutes was a good start for this episode. I'm pretty excited about what we're going to cover. But just remember the gift and the curse, the gift and the curse, right? Just remember, you see both of them in the world when it comes to using technology. I'm here to bring you the good deeds. I'm here to bring you the gift. I'm here to get you to click the love button. go ahead and click that, and go ahead and go to phrasekeywords.com. Make sure you check out the shop and get yourself one of those. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. You're just going to be spreading the love wherever you go. Literally, people are going to walk up to you and click the love button. It's going to break ice. It's going to get you to meet people you just never would have imagined you'd be meeting. I'm going to tell you some stories about the power of this shirt in the next episode. But for now, I'm out of here. Peace and love.